One.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Daily Objective. Today is September 12th, and I, an American, am going to talk about what this date means to me. And by this date, I mean, well, not only September 12th, but obviously the day beforehand, September 11th. I am in the middle of London, and I want to talk about some of my memories surrounding the brutal attacks of September 11th, 2001, and how I sort of place it in the context of history and of the culture. If you're watching this on the internet, please leave a like and super chat your thoughts and questions and all of that. And don't forget to hit that join button if you're not already a member. So in 2001, I was 14 and fairly new to living in the United States, originally born in Israel. And I would say, if I were to characterize my sort of mission in life as a young man, it was to kind of understand the American people. I was fascinated by America, by all the, the exports, the entertainment, and the commercialization, the glamour, the beauty. And I wanted it. I wanted to understand it. I wanted to understand these Americans that I had sort of a glimpse of from media, like Macaulay Culkin. That was like the all-American person in my mind growing up. And so I was living in the suburbs of Detroit when, word got out that the World Trade Center had been attacked or had been bombed, I heard. I didn't really know what that was. I didn't know it was the Twin Towers. So I was like, sounds like some kind of military center was bombed, which is, not a good thing, obviously, but at least nobody in their office had a commercial jet fly in. Obviously, that is in fact what happened. And like everyone, I was shocked and not sure what was coming next. And, in like a weird way, the America that I was sort of searching for, that I was trying to get my piece of, it kind of was interrupted on that day. America up until that day was sort of this kind of like carefree country. It was the type of country that never gets attacked on our own soil. America was a place where people get to sort of never grow up, where people get to just kind of enjoy life. That was the impression I got, and it was largely based on kind of what was actually the case. America has long been a prosperous and very commercial country where sort of the pursuit of happiness, albeit at times misguided, was a big part of the country. So the pursuit of happiness, as opposed to the need to defend and to get back at whoever attacked us. So of course, having come from Israel, America was sort of supposed to be the escape from all the violence and the threats. America was supposed to be the safe place. Of course, the attack on September 11th showed me and many others that we're all living in Israel now. And I'm sad to say to the Europeans among whom I sit today, by today, by this year, by current decade, we really all are living in Israel, referring to the Ariana Grande concert bombed, all the various trucks driving off the road and driving over people. In a way, everybody in the Western world, everybody who lives in a semi-free country is, kind of living with the sort of expectation that at any unexpected moment, a terrorist attack could take place. So going back to 2001, and this shocking event took place, I wasn't sure what life would even look like after this, and what did it mean to be American after this. And the following day, I was on the internet. I had high-speed internet. This was like cutting edge at the time, so I didn't need to dial up. It wasn't quite that primitive, but what there was to do on the internet was fairly primitive compared to today. Of course, we didn't have YouTube. We didn't have Twitter. We didn't have like this real-time commentary coming from all over the world at once. But we were able to communicate with each other one-on-one. So I was on AOL Instant Messenger. That was like the original. That was an amazing thing looking back. I mean, it blew my mind at the time. I could write something, basically texting is what it was. I can write something and you read it right away. mind-blowing stuff, folks. But you could also send pictures over AOL, and somebody sent me a picture of toilet paper that had Osama bin Laden's face on it. This was the day after 9/11, so exactly 21 years ago. It was September 12th. And at the time, I was shocked that anyone could joke. I didn't know if anyone would ever joke about anything again in general after 9/11, and then, let alone to joke about something loosely related, in some way related to that terrorist attack. My jaw kind of dropped, and even back then, I was not a, I had a great sense of humor even back then. I was hardly what you would call, the most reverent of all people, even at that age. But still, I was amazed that after 9/11, somebody could even make fun of Osama bin Laden. That's how serious I thought everything was. But here were normal people. I think it was a girl who sent that picture, so it was not, not a raunchy boy. It was a girl. These were preppy people. These were preps. These were not punks. These were jocks and cheerleaders who were sending out these pictures of making fun of Osama bin Laden. And another meme going around was, we're going to build the Twin Towers again, and a third one in between them, like a big middle finger to the terrorists. So I kind of learned that Americans were ready to sort of joke about the situation almost immediately. And, why that is, kind of what makes Americans that way, is an interesting question. I could see conflicting opinions even among objectivists, even among students of Ayn Rand. It's hard to know how Ayn Rand herself would explain the phenomenon if she were alive. So, of course, on the one hand, somebody could say this is the, unextinguishable, unstoppable American spirit that just never stops grinning at the world, even when under attack in the most horrific way. And of course, the other side, the other kind of perspective might be, this is nihilism. This is a lack of taking anything seriously, even in such a shocking day that people would be goofing around. So that this is evasion, I could see somebody saying. So, which one of those perspectives is is derived from reality? I tend to go with the former. I tend to say these, the Americans and the Westerners, people living in the modern world, we look for the light side of things, and that's kind of a good thing. But I don't really have the answer. I can't really prove it either way. So it is quite possible that the fact that Americans were ready to joke about 9/11 right away, I mean, that could be, I guess, how would we say, the results of progressive education, that this is, again, lack of values. I hear both sides, honestly. I remember South Park soon after 9/11. It might have been the following day, because, South Park was always on Wednesdays, and 9/11 was a Tuesday, if I recall. So it might have been literally the day after. If not, then it was a week later. Maybe like all TV was sort of suspended. Like everyone was just showing footage of the emergency on that day and a little bit of the day after. So maybe the South Park episode was the following day, or maybe it was a week, 8 days later. But either way, it was soon after. They wasted no time getting to work. This might have been the first time South Park did this. So since then, South Park have become famous for jumping on the news. With election results and other types of things happening in the news, South Park are known to get right to work, and you wonder how they got the episode done so fast. So this might have been the first time they did it. I'm not sure, but it could have been. After 9/11, South Park had an episode where, it was the boys, the main characters from the show, they go off to Afghanistan, and you end up with this, the fat kid Cartman is chasing around or getting chased by Osama bin Laden, and bin Laden is depicted as this goofy cartoon character, like a stupid kind of Wile E. Coyote type of character that's easily manipulated. And again, you could hear the sort of the serious folks saying that to even joke about, even to make fun of bin Laden is inappropriate in such a somber time. But I certainly wouldn't say that the intention of the South Park creators or of the people who enjoyed the show at the time was to dismiss the severity of the situation, but it really was, I think, to to kind of rise above the sadness and to kind of laugh at evil, to laugh at Bin Laden, and to laugh at fear, and to say, you know, there's something that could not be attacked on 9/11. In other words, so many people were killed and so much damage was done, but there was something that could not be reached, and that, of course, you know, all false similarities aside, I think that you can sort of compare that sentiment to the Fountainhead, you know, the dialogue saying like, the pain only goes so deep, or there's something within you they cannot reach. You get what I'm referring to if you've read the book. Now, what brought about the attacks of September 11th, or what made America the type of country where that people are confident to attack, and what makes America the type of country that was unsuccessful in responding properly to the attack? I think very few people, if anyone on Earth today, would say America properly responded to 9/11. Some people say America should have just turned the other cheek and apologized, you know, but enough about the libertarians. Some people would say America should have been just belligerently destructive and basically just started nuking anyone that looked like an Islamic country or something. I think that's also misguided. In fact, what America should have done, given that 9/11 took place, and we'll get into kind of what led up to 9/11, but in the aftermath of 9/11, if America were to act properly, America would have dismantled the Islamic Republic of Iran. That country, as it stands, should not have been allowed to be. So that regime should have been toppled. And of course, anyone who had anything to do with the 9/11 attacks, you know, Al-Qaeda or the Taliban that harbored them, should have been confronted and eliminated quickly and decisively, with the clear message that this is what happens when you attack Americans. What in fact happened was Iran was completely left alone and not punished for their ongoing aggression against America. And the Taliban and Afghanistan, what happened was a war that should have taken maybe a week or a day, you know, went on indefinitely. And America's foreign policy, America's rule of engagements, I should say, specifically when in battle, America's policy is very timid and non-assertive. And, you know, interestingly, I met a Vietnam veteran a few weeks ago. So this is someone who fought for America in Vietnam many decades ago. And he said, the rule was you cannot use more force than you're getting, he said. This was in Vietnam. What was that, the early 70s or in the 60s, he says. American troops were not allowed to exert more force than they were receiving. So if you see the enemy, you see the Viet Cong, but they're not firing at you, you may not fire at them. So that's way back then, and it's only gotten worse since then. America's only gotten more pathetic and pacifistic in our rules of engagement. So basically, what happened in Afghanistan was we kind of targeted Al-Qaeda, but basically let most of them get away. Bin Laden certainly could have been killed right away, but was allowed to escape because, you know, lest America hurt any civilians. Now, in fact, in war, you do need to sometimes kill civilians, and it's the fault of the people you're aiming at. It's the fault of, let's say, America is at war with Canada because Canada are the bad guys who started the war. Canadians are going to get killed, and that's the fault of the Canadian government. So you see the parallel. The same with England attacking Germany, right? I fully support England bombing the German cities in World War II. Not only the German military, but the German cities. Why? Because that's part of winning that war requires. And when German citizens die as a result of that, it's tragic at times, but it is the fault of the German government. It's the fault of Hitler and the military for provoking England. So America similarly should have eliminated everyone who had anything to do with attacking America in Afghanistan, but not wanting to hurt any civilians and not wanting to come off too assertive, basically let most of the bad guys get away. And Bin Laden wasn't caught until a decade later, roughly. And of course, the war in Afghanistan was never really resolved. It just kind of kept on going and going and going and going until Biden ended it, I don't know, last year, whenever that was, and with literally nothing to show for the 18 years or so of ongoing shenanigans in Afghanistan. So that's basically what America did after 9/11. Of course, the Iraq War as well took place. So specifically because Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. So for the reason that Iraq were not the ones who attacked America is why America went into Iraq, because, you know, we're not going to be selfish. And you can see the influence of ethics, of philosophy in all politics. So if America were to respond to the actual country responsible for 9/11, that would be selfish. Well, like, who do you think you are, being so selfish and assertive? Instead, go into Iraq because they're not really the direct threat to us, and basically turned that whole mission into a mission of Iraqi freedom. Basically sacrifice American lives for the supposed freedom of Iraqis on the presumption that they even want freedom. And another reason that Iraq was attacked rather than Iran is that Iraq had a secular dictator, Saddam Hussein. And George W. Bush, the American president during and after 9/11, is himself an evangelical Christian, part of a sort of poster child of the big comeback of religion in the United States in the decades leading up to that. And George W. Bush could not blame a religion for 9/11. He kept on insisting that Islam is a religion of peace, and that truly religious people would never do something as horrific as the attacks on 9/11. So if America's then going to invade another country, in addition to Afghanistan, it's going to, of course, be the secular dictatorship, you know, vaguely somewhat of a threat to America, but not really, and certainly not close to the most responsible, nowhere close to the most guilty of, you know, funding terrorism towards America. So again, because it was not selfish, you know, not in America's interest really to attack Iraq, and because Iraq was a secular dictatorship, America went into Iraq. So another endless blunder that ended with no particular results that anyone can point to. And Iran to this day stands strong and a shining example to the world that Islam can rule over man. That Islam will, if not confronted soon, you know, it will spread and it will rule over man, which is kind of what the promise is, right? That's what the religious Islamic extremists are hoping to see. So you don't have. It's much easier to convince people that it's possible when you can point to Iran and say, "See, it's been done." So now, what led up to America being such a pathetic weakling, who does so little to defend itself and yet is accused constantly of being hawkish and a bully in the world? I think you would have to go back to the death of America's foreign policy. Possibly, arguably the worst president ever, Teddy Roosevelt. I'd say possibly the worst because he did the most to kind of ruin a wonderful country. Like, America was still in its glorious golden era in the late 19th century, and Teddy Roosevelt starts turning the American government into this sort of charity organization and this sort of activist organization, and sort of turned America into a place where today, like, the government owns like a giant chunk of the continent. That's Roosevelt. You can trace it back to him, saying, you know, we need to preserve wildlife, and basically everything's sort of extra constitutional. You know, everything the government is going to do is going to be beyond what the government is limited to in the Constitution. So domestically, America would become a place that, you know, redistributes wealth and taxes. There hadn't been income taxes back then. Everything that free market people and objectivists lament today, I think you could largely trace back to Roosevelt, and maybe even farther back. You know, maybe Lincoln subsidizing the railroads was another kind of first step towards the grave of the United States. But when it comes to foreign policy, I think you could say Teddy Roosevelt might have been the first president to just start sending American troops all over the place for no particular reason. Just there's something happening, some conflict somewhere, let's send Americans over there and get involved. A couple decades after Roosevelt or so, you had Woodrow Wilson, who was the progressive president. He was part of the progressive movement. He might have called himself a fascist, or certainly he was friendly to people who did. The word fascist was not a dirty word back then. The word fascist basically they were saying out loud what most people are still for, which is some government force and some corporate freedom, but a lot like a sort of a marriage of government and big corporations, sort of engineering society. So they were fascists, and that's what Woodrow Wilson was. And he took America into World War I for no reason at all. He said this would be a great national adventure. He said, a national adventure. I mean, how is this different than, you know, Joseph Stalin slaughtering untold millions to strengthen his nation? I mean, it's only the difference. The difference is of degrees, of scale, how many people are killed. But in principle, it's basically the same. It's killing American 18-year-olds, sending them to risk their life and to die for a, quote, national adventure. So it's absolutely disgraceful. And that's what Woodrow Wilson did. Took America into World War I. World War I, of course, made the world a worse place, created more chaos, arguably led to World War II. It's been said that America could have done more to win World War II, more decisively. Maybe I've also heard it said by credible sources that after America beat Japan and the Allies beat Germany, the American general wanted to keep going and dismantle the Soviet Union, but was told not to. He was told to stand down by the American president. I guess must have been Truman at that point. So again, think about how different the world would be if the Americans had some balls. If the Americans said, you know, we're not going to allow another dictatorship to threaten the world, to threaten freedom. But of course, instead, America gave half of Germany and however many other territories and countries over to the Soviet Union and came back home. Thereafter, America went into Korea, went into Vietnam, and again, well, not again, but for the first time now, well, not even for the first time, right? World War I was a national adventure. Now you start to see America going into, you know, to confront communism, but with no policy, with no like specific project saying like, here's what we're setting out to accomplish. Here's how we know we won, but just kind of like blindly stumbling into foreign territories and countries to get involved in their civil wars with no end game. So Korea, the Korean conflict, of course, did not really do much to confront communism, as far as I know. Maybe North Korea would have been both Koreas. Maybe both Koreas would be living under communism, but for American involvement, I don't know. But the case cannot be made that it protected Americans for America to go into Korea. Then Vietnam, once again, you see a blunder that drags on for years and years with no assertive policy, with no clear end game of what victory would look like. And then that is the way America would conduct its foreign policy for those decades after World War II. Just senselessly sending troops into diverse places around the world with the half-stated mission of taming the Soviet Union, but not exactly, and being very flimsy and sloppy and apologetic in all of its dealings, while being accused of the opposite, being accused of being hawkish and brutal and, you know, bloodthirsty. So the altruistic manifestation in America's foreign policy, it didn't even earn America any moral credit, because altruism is pathetic and it only makes people more suspicious of you. Then, if all of that wasn't bad enough, then came the Iranian hostage situation in 1979. So now we were seeing people that wanted Islam to rule over man. They were taking action. They were taking action to see that fantasy become a reality. And Americans were taken hostage. And once again, a project that should have taken a day, America could have confronted that situation with some very sharp teeth. Instead, it was those hostages were kept there for something like a year. I forget the exact amount, but it dragged on endlessly. The Iranian terrorists who took Americans hostage saw how pathetic America is. The Iranian government became an Islamic one, and American and British owned and maybe other European owned oil refineries were nationalized. The same happened in Saudi Arabia as well. So American property was nationalized, and part of vital industries such as oil. So an industry that the Western way of life largely depends on was sort of taken by the Islamists, and America and Europe did really nothing about it. Thereafter, now we all need to worry about, can we even confront the Islamic threat? Because they have all this oil. Like, how will it affect our lifestyle if we attack the people who sell us our oil? Forgetting the fact that they're only selling us oil we allowed them to steal from our citizens. So, again, flimsy, incoherent foreign policy. It strengthens barbarians around the world. So Iran became not only the material funders of terrorists around the world, and not only the educators of Islamic terrorists around the world, but most importantly, they became an example of what's possible. So people like Osama bin Laden, people like the Palestinians, people who were inspired by Iran started to believe that it is possible for Islam to rule the earth. It is possible to confront the great Satan, America, and to replace the American government with an Islamic one day. Let's start working on it, they said. So Iran definitely have continued with their targeting of American and Western people and countries. Many American Marines were killed in the 1980s under President Reagan, the president who I've heard is like, the gold standard of what a president should be. He was very weak in the face of the Islamic threat, maybe because Reagan was pro-religion himself, or maybe just because he just didn't have what it took, and his administration didn't have what it took to properly confront a threat like the Islamic one. But Iran funded the killing of American Marines in the 1980s and again suffered no consequences. Iran and other Islamic governments funded the Palestinian terrorists that would target Israelis. Now, before the 1980s, the Palestinians, I believe, were largely secular, or they were largely not necessarily Islamic. They were pan-Arab nationalists. Their dream was not necessarily that Islam would rule, but that the Middle East would unify in one glorious Arab state or something like that. And Israel, of course, was standing between them and that goal, right? Little Israel was what was stopping them from getting their act together, they thought. But then from the 1980s onward, largely the death to Israel chants came along with, Allahu Akbar and suicide bombings throughout the 1990s when I was living in Israel. Missile attacks from the Gaza Strip, and I'm specifically mentioning suicide attacks because you couldn't really get somebody to blow themselves up in most cases if they don't strongly believe in God, if they don't strongly believe in the Islamic promise of the afterlife, and we get that kind of belief because of the spreading of radical Islam, largely again inspired by what the Iranian Revolution brought about, the Islamic Republic of Iran. So if you're following along here, you're seeing that America's failure to deal properly with Iran from 1979 and onward resulted in the emboldening of Iran, and Iran further inspiring other Muslims around the world or other non-Muslims to convert to Islam even because they see strength in Iran. But certainly Muslims saw what's possible. Bin Laden and Al-Qaeda and other organizations like them were inspired to attack the United States. They were inspired to further this dream, to further this goal of Islam ruling the earth. And of course, 9/11 was the culmination of that. So 100-year-long plus bad foreign policy became the sloppiness of it and the presence of the altruist premise in there that it would be wrong for a country to just flick the bad guys and just quickly stomp them out like the pest that they are, and to boldly defend our free way of life. To do all that would be selfish, right? And altruism says, turn the other cheek. Altruism says, don't be selfish. Altruism says, don't be confident in your own greatness. Why does a Western country have any claim to their own sovereignty, right? I mean, who's to say that an Islamic republic doesn't have an equal valid point of view, right? Multiculturalism says no one culture is better than the other. And multiculturalism, again, is altruistic, saying don't be selfish, don't be confident. So 9/11 and the failure to properly respond to it are both examples of 100-year-long sloppy foreign policy, an altruistically motivated foreign policy, and a foreign policy that fails to embrace the founding principles of America, that fails to embrace individualism and individual rights, fails to protect liberty, fails to stand on the shoulders of the Enlightenment philosophers like John Locke and Thomas Paine, people who inspired America's founding fathers. So after 9/11, we saw a lot of Americans waving the American flag and talking about, yeah, America really is exceptional. America is a great place. We don't appreciate it enough. People are saying we've taken it for granted, but now's the time to stand up and fight for this free way of life. And for a while, you saw what I think is kind of a healthy, more than lip service, kind of a vocalizing of support for what makes America and hence the Western world something worth defending, something special in the context of history and in the context of the world. But of course, when the face of America and the face of the defense of our way of life is George Bush, an evangelical Christian, and when he won't say that we were attacked by a religious cause, when he won't blame a religion, and when he himself is religious and thinks that religion and Christianity and altruism is a big part of what it is that we need to defend, when George W. Bush studied, quote, just war theory, which is sort of the official policy that generals and soldiers are taught in the United States, just war theory being the Christianization of war. Basically, the turn the other cheek-ization of war, saying, like I said earlier, the Vietnam vet mentioned to me, you don't use more force than you're getting. And if you're using force, it's not really for self-defense. You can only really do it to protect somebody else, right? It's better to attack Iraq if we're doing it to defend the Iraqis from Saddam Hussein. It shouldn't be that we're doing it, to defend Americans and our way of life. People tell us all the time, right? Oh, you objectivists, why do you take philosophy so seriously? Just align yourself with people who basically agree with you. You'll get more done. Is that so? Is that true? Because clearly philosophy makes all the difference. Ethics makes all the difference. The fact that altruism was never properly, called into question, the fact that Ayn Rand was not taken seriously in her lifetime is why we had a president in 2001 that takes altruism seriously when it comes to war, that takes religion seriously when it comes to war, and an American people that didn't have the coherence, that didn't have the philosophical integration, the philosophical confidence, and the moral confidence to say the people who attacked us need to die immediately, and the Iranian government that inspired these attacks and largely funded them and instructed them, but mostly, like I said, inspired them by showing them that attacks on the U.S. can bring about the Islamic rule that you seek. Those entities need to be confronted and brought to justice ASAP. Americans were unable to say that because of philosophy. So long story short, too long, didn't read. Philosophy does matter. We see the results all around us. And if a lot of this sounds negative, the good news is there is a good antidote to all of this. There is a good philosophy, as the namesake of this channel suggests, Ayn Rand's objectivism. And the first person it is going to help is you yourself, you the reader, you the viewer, you the student. It can give you the confidence to live your life, just as America needed confidence on 9/11. This philosophy can give you confidence to deal with your own, quote, 9/11s, right? Your mental anxiety, your addiction, your lack of motivation, whatever it is that ails you, your, whatever it is in your life that needs to be dealt with. This is a philosophy that gives you the moral confidence and just the confidence in general to deal with reality. So read Ayn Rand and feel free to support the Ayn Rand Center UK. Let's take a look at the chat room here. Maybe we got some, we got some people contributing. Let's see what we got. I'm checking the chat room on my phone, so watch what you say. All right, we got some nice, we got some green and blue here. Mary Aline, thank you for the $5. Allie B with $2 says, great episode going on right now. Well, thank you. Mary Aline with $5 then says, there was a lot of grassroots patriotism in America. 9/11 brought people together in anger and outrage, but there was little principled understanding. Yeah, that's exactly right. The saying is, never let an opportunity go, never let an emergency go to waste, right? So after such a horrific attack, the positive opportunity would have been for a president to properly, lead America to a proper war against the perpetuators of 9/11. It would have been an opportunity for Americans to truly understand that this is what religion brings us. 9/11 is religion brought, in concrete form, essentially. Mysticism clashing with beautiful skyscrapers. It was an opportunity for a philosophical revolution as well as for the implementation of a good foreign policy. It was the opportunity for a lot of things. There probably was a good anti-religious sort of movement. Like, there was a strong atheist kind of trend in the 2000s. Probably a lot of it was already going to happen just because it was sort of happening in America and in the world. The internet accelerated that because of the accelerated communication on things like YouTube. So I think something like 9/11 definitely got a lot of people to understand on a concrete level that religion is hazardous to your health. But as we see, sans a good philosophy like objectivism, all that people have in response to religion is skepticism, and all skepticism really does is open the door back for religion again. And don't take my word for it. Look at the last 10 years or last 5 years even. Marilyn with $2 says, fight to win or stay home. That's exactly right. Jonathan Honig with $1.99. Thank you for that. Marilyn with $2 says, Calvin Coolidge, best 20th century president. You're asking the wrong person, but if you like him, I bet he's not a bad guy at all. Kathleen with 99 pence and a winking emoji. Thank you for that. All right, well, that was a nice little episode there. I guess if anyone here on the premises has a question or comment, feel free to raise your hand, and I will grant you that privilege. I don't see any hands raising up, so let me just say what a privilege it is to be here with you. This is obviously a very special date in the lives of Americans, and it's kind of interesting to spend it here with our one and only ally, basically. Well, I'm exaggerating, but it's nice to be here in England. I'm looking around, I see immigrants, I see people who are British because they choose to be. And we have a similar thing happening in America. The greatest Americans happen to be immigrants or people that weren't born there. I was not born in America, but like I mentioned at the start of the episode, I couldn't wait to become one. I was born a U.S. citizen, but I needed to work to become a resident and a person who understands the American spirit. And I think I've done so, and hopefully I've helped you do so as well today. Thanks for having. Leave a super thanks on the video if you're watching this at home. And coming up today at 9 p.m. UK time, it's HBTV with Harry Binswanger on Stoicism and other death-worshipping philosophies. Yeah, if I persuaded you today that to take philosophy seriously, I've certainly done a deep service to mankind. So I hope you all stick around and check that out later on. All right, everybody. Let's call it a wrap there. Thank you all. And leave a super thanks, leave a like, hit that join button, and goodbye.